traveling to Jamaica in 2022 during COVID-19, this is what you need to know. First, we will start off with the current travel requirements to Jamaica. Before you plan your trip to Jamaica, the first step is to go to the official government website for visitors that has all the details. It's called visitjamaica.com/travel authorization. I will have the website linked below. You must fill out the travel authorization online within 7 days of the intended travel, and you will have to wait for approval. Select whether you live in Jamaica or not, and the website will take you to the correct authorization form. For non-residents, they typically get approved under an hour, and residents typically get approved within 24 hours. It is important to fill out one travel authorization form per person and not per family. This, however, is not required to book your flight. This is required for boarding the aircraft, so be sure to have an electronic copy saved to your phone or your laptop so you can show the boarding agents upon check-in. Step 2. You need to get a COVID-19 test. All travelers 12 years or older, regardless of your vaccination status, must present a negative COVID-19 test. You may take an antigen test, a PCR, RNA, or NNA COVID-19 test, and the test can be taken within 3 days of departure to board a flight to Jamaica. Tests must be conducted by a lab that is accredited by the authorities in that country. You don't need to upload your test results. You also don't need it when you are booking a flight. You will only need to present the negative test when you are boarding the aircraft. So now you have filled out your travel authorization, you have been approved, you have taken your COVID-19 test, you have now boarded the aircraft. Now, what happens when you arrive to Jamaica? Let me walk you through the steps. On arrival in Jamaica, travelers will undergo a health screening and a risk assessment and may still be required to be tested at the airport if, for example, they are exhibiting symptoms despite presenting a negative COVID-19 test to board their flight. Now, quarantine. Do you still need to quarantine despite being vaccinated? Do you still need to be quarantined despite taking a COVID-19 test? Let me tell you what the measures are. If the traveler is a tourist, meaning the traveler is staying in an approved resort along the resilient corridor, the traveler may enjoy the amenities on property and would be permitted to leave to visit approved attractions and restaurants via the JTB licensed transportation. So I will have the link of all the approved attractions, resorts, and transportation companies listed below. If the traveler is staying at a private residence or at a resort outside of the resilient corridor, the traveler would be required to quarantine for 14 days. However, if the traveler is fully vaccinated, the quarantine time is reduced to just 8 days. If you are a fully vaccinated traveler, you have the option to do a PCR test upon arrival to Jamaica, and upon receipt of a negative test result, you would be released from quarantine. If you are fully vaccinated and you take a PCR test 3 days prior to traveling to Jamaica, you would not be required to quarantine. Now that you're in Jamaica, what do you need to know? The curfew hours in Jamaica are currently 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily. During the curfew hours, you should not be on the road. If you need to travel outside of the curfew hours, it has to be a valid reason, such as going to the airport, going to the hospital, or if you have a booking at a hotel, you can travel outside of the curfew hours. When you're in Jamaica, all persons are required to wear a face mask and physical distance when in public spaces. You have enjoyed your time in Jamaica and you are ready to leave the island. Now what next? Most jurisdictions require all their citizens to take a negative COVID test upon arrival to that country. Now what if you would take the COVID-19 test and your test comes back positive? What do? You will have to extend your stay. If you test positive for COVID-19, you can do another test within 5 days of the first test. If it's negative, you can go home. If it's still positive, you will have to wait until day 10 to do another test. If it's negative, you may leave. But if it's positive, you will have to wait until day 14 to do the test. But what if the test is still positive after day 14? You will need to get a COVID release form from the Ministry of Health and they will release you from quarantine. So if you take the test on day 14 and the result is still saying that you have COVID-19, you will be released by the Ministry of Health to board the next flight to your country.